Good evening, sir. Thank you very much for your time. So you went to work today, and what happened after you entered the premises?
Good evening, Vuyo, and to your viewers. I think it is important to understand that I went back to work on the back of a judgment which was given by the High Court.
Where you are temporarily reinstated?
Yes. And it is actually important to understand what that meant, because there have actually been statements that have been misleading. That was a temporary relief. The judgment is actually very clear that it was temporary relief. So the notion that there is a misunderstanding on the interpretation, when somebody stands up and says that's permanent relief, when the judgment is clear, I even said, let's actually not question and actually think about our own diction, because the judgment is very, very clear. So that's actually at the heart of it. So when I got there, all mutual, or they said, the board said that they were challenging this, and I know that appealing is within anybody's rights. But there's a basis on how you appeal a temporary relief, which is not applicable in this case. And actually, I'm informed by my lawyers that this is a form of neat way to really go behind what the court has said. In fact, they're saying that it is contempt of court by the All Mutual Board.
So you got there this morning on the back of that ruling. What happened this morning?
Well, this is exactly what they said. They said because they've challenged or they're appealing the judgment, I could not go into the office. It actually suspends that ruling.
So you entered the building.
Yes.
On your way to your office, did someone stop you and say, you can't go in?
Well, you actually have to go. You actually have to go through a security system, and I could not get my card to go through that security system.
But you went into the building.
I went into the building. I actually went into some of the meeting rooms.
Now, are you going to work tomorrow?
I am actually going to be talking to my counsel, maybe later this evening or tomorrow morning.
With the aim of?
Well, we actually have to make sure that people respect the rule of law. You don't respect the laws of the country or the judgments of the courts only if you win, and actually try and create other scenarios for you to effectively not follow a judgment of a court in South Africa.
But from where Old Mutual stands, and they've stated this unequivocally, their appeal from where they sit, their appeal then means that you cannot go to work. Is that where you're going to leave it? I'm trying to understand what's going to happen tomorrow.
No, we're actually not going to leave it there. Like I'm saying, All Mutual, their starting point, are saying the judgment that was given yesterday makes my reinstatement a permanent feature. The judgment is very clear. It is temporary relief. The judgment is actually very clear. It is unambiguous.
Now, I mean, I've seen people debating various aspects of this saga throughout the day. In fact, over in the time that it has been out there. The fact that there's just person to think that taking on a big company like Old Mutual, no matter what your history and reputation might be, amounts to suicide. You obviously went into this with your eyes wide open.
Yes.
Did you think about the possible consequences that even if you win at the end of the day, it may just mean that life will never be the same for you again.
Oh yeah, there's an issue of principle here. There was actually the issue of my name and my reputation above all else. And I'm actually quite happy that the court has actually agreed with me. And today, I can actually once again walk proudly, because actually the court was actually very, very clear that what our mutual did was actually unlawful.
Does that matter more to you? In other words, does the principle matter more to you than, say, job security and making sure that you don't jeopardize your, shall we say, employment chances in future? In case someone out there who may have been able to employ you had you quietly walked out, they may now think you are this stubborn person who is difficult and who may bring them problems in the event that they enter into a relationship with you and further down the line you don't see eye to eye. Is that something that matters to you?
Oh, it actually matters. But the important thing is when you have actually been destroyed as an individual. In the first instance, nobody actually looks at you. But in this particular case, we actually went to court and actually said, look, one, it is about my name. And like I said, I'm actually glad that it has actually been cleared. This was actually fighting on an issue of principle around cleansing my name, because we had actually not been given an opportunity to go through a process of actually doing that.
If you were to win this case ultimately, would you still go back? Because Old Mutual has already said that they believe the relations, there's an irretrievable breakdown of the relationship.
Well, I hope my counsel is comfortable with me saying this. One of the things that counsel argued in court, which might also have been a view that the judge agreed with, is that when people make those assertions that the relationship has actually been irretrievably broken down, why should the innocent person suffer? I mean, there's a principal issue here for you. In fact, the example that actually was used in court was actually a scary one, that you could actually be a boss, abuse somebody, say the relationship is irretrievably broken down, and the person that has been abused leaves employment. And that actually is the issue. So there were certain principles here that we actually had to stand for. And like I said, I'm actually glad that we've been vindicated.
Look, I mean, looking at what Judge Michela had to say, he says the concerns that you raised them, and I quote, in good faith and for no personal gain. He also says quite a number of things in your favor. Which then brings me to this. Could this not have been handled differently by mature people who form part, both non-executive and executive directors of a company that is big and important in the economy of this country? And we're talking here about a CEO of that company and the board chairman who is a former finance minister.
I think it could actually have been handled totally.
With the benefit of hindsight, how?
In fact, my attorney, I think it was actually in the first interview, he said this is something that could actually have been dealt with over a cup of tea. But again, it was actually all mutual that went to the press first.
So you were amenable to resolving this amicably and without all the drama that we've seen?
In fact, when I got the letter of suspension, I was actually waiting for them to talk about the next steps. We had actually agreed that they were actually going to go and think about how we deal with this. And so I was not even expecting that.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, you heard in my intro, and I was raising quite a number of challenges that we're facing as a nation.
Yeah.
the ESCOM staff, the jobs situation, how critical it is, I mean, for us to be all, like everyone, to sort of putting shoulder to the wheel to try and build businesses for those of you who are tasked with that, for legislators to make sure and the executive to look at things that can be done now to avert an even bigger crisis. You don't think that it's a bit of an indictment, you know, on, I suppose, all of us, that here you are, this drama playing itself out at a very critical time in our country when you should be focusing on the business and on the economy of the country?
Oh, it's very, very sad. In fact, on the day this thing happened, a lot of my colleagues will actually remember that we were actually worrying about the company. We were actually going into an AGM. There were a few things that we had actually planned to do on that day and the following day, which were actually overtaken by this. They were very important things that we were doing at Old Mutual for the benefit of our shareholders, for the benefit of our staff and our broader stakeholders. And it's a pity that quite a lot of ground has actually been lost, because Old Mutual has got the potential of playing a much, much bigger role actually in the society. It is a pity that today a whole lot of question marks are actually being asked even about its conduct.
What do you think should happen, putting yourself aside, looking at the role that you believe Old Mutual can play in rebuilding our economy? Where do you see ESCOM's, where do you see Old Mutual's specific role in as the country grapples with what we're grappling with right now?
There are actually quite a lot of things. Old Mutual mobilizes the savings of a lot of South Africans, their normal savings for retirement and insurance. So it's got a very big balance sheet, which, if appropriately used, could actually help this country build more companies, invest in agriculture, therefore create more jobs. Old Mutual does not only operate in South Africa, it operates in 13 African countries, where it actually has got a premium position in almost all those economies. So Old Mutual can actually play a significant role in shaping the destiny of not only of South Africa, but of our continent. So there's actually quite a lot that Old Mutual can actually do.
With or without you?
Well, I would like to think that with me, because we actually had a very clear vision of what we wanted to do for this great company.
Mr. Moyo, best of luck, and thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Old Mutual CEO Peter Moyo.